So this year, Activision has given us a brand new Call of Duty game, and this year, we're getting what's called Call of Duty Vanguard, a World War II game that is essentially just Modern Warfare 2019, but done over again with World War II format. And while this worked kind of for Cold War for some people, it's really starting to get stale with this new entry, and all the mechanics that have been in the game since Modern Warfare 2019 are also starting to get stale too. Now, let me just preface this real quick. This is a beta, and I know people are going to say, oh, because it's a beta, we can expect the full game to be a lot different, but the truth is we can't, really anymore, because the past couple games, for the most part, the beta is basically a playtest of the game. It's basically a near full complete version of the game, and the version we get at launch is essentially the same, but for me, the full release is always worse than the beta. They always run worse, they always have less, they just run worse for me, and that's really, really strange, and I'll get to that in a bit. But, am I excited for Vanguard? What are my thoughts on this game? Well, I wasn't terribly excited for Vanguard. In fact, I was honestly in the camp of hoping they weren't going to do a COD game this year, but they are, and the game that we're getting is, I don't know how to feel about it. Vanguard's beta is a load of mixed bags, and a lot of them, it has some great, and it has some really terrible stuff in it. Now, is it perfect? No. But is it horrible? No. I sit somewhere in the middle with this one, and I'll talk about why. Now, let's start out with the elephant in the room, and that is the World War II setting. The last time Call of Duty did a World War II game was only 4 years ago with COD World War II, and to me, that game was incredibly hard. When I mean hard, I mean it was hard to play. I did not enjoy World War II almost at all, but it was mainly because I did not like the gun play. I just didn't like the way the guns felt. I didn't like the loadouts. I thought the game was too simple. I just didn't enjoy the game. Shit, I played the beta back in the day because you were able to get some $5 pre-orders from GameStop, and I didn't get the full game because I could not stand the beta. And luckily, I honestly found Vanguard to be better, this beta, to be better than the World War II beta, in my opinion. But I know that that's definitely a small opinion. Vanguard's beta is essentially kind of what you would expect it to be. If you like Modern Warfare 2019, you might like this game. If you don't, then don't even bother with this entry, because it's essentially very similar. You've got the same mechanics. In fact, almost identical mechanics. The movement feels nearly the same. And that's not an issue to me because, personally, I really like the Modern Warfare style of movement. That was like one of the only really good parts about the game that I really hoped they would return. However, they also brought back mounting, and they brought it into a new light, and I hate that. I dislike mounting. Now, I will say this about mounting, is that it kind of adds another dimension to the gameplay. But for a game like COD, it's just a dimension that you don't need. Yeah, it makes the maps feel maybe less boring, but it is not fun when you're on the rear end getting shot at from a mount. And you can now move while you're mounted, which is annoying as all hell. I don't know why they added that. Out of everything they could add, this is what they add, and it's really bizarre to me. Unfortunately, the worst part about the setting is that it's kind of just what you would expect. It's just World War II. There's nothing special about it. I mean, there's red dot sights in a game that has World War II for some reason. I don't question it. It's kind of like the selling point is that it's World War II, and that's not very exciting. The story itself actually looks pretty damn interesting, but the multiplayer itself honestly just feels like the World War II exists purely as a gimmick, which is a thing that they did with World War II in 2017, and it made the game so boring and forgettable. And I'm hoping that they don't do the same thing with this year's Vanguard, although I don't have high hopes for that being the case. Now, on another note, I think the shooting in this game is pretty damn good. I think the actual guns, and the way they sound, and the way they feel, and kills, is far more satisfying than Cold War. And I also think the gunsmith is a far big improvement over Cold War. Besides the fact that there's 10 attachments, which I think is actually kind of absurd, I personally would take this gunsmith any day because it seems like they're kind of going back to Modern Warfare where every gun has individual, things. Cold War could have honestly done without the whole gunsmith because every single gun had the exact same attachments with the exact same names and the exact same stats, and it honestly got just annoying for me, and it didn't make me want to customize my guns. It just made me want to just keep on using the same guns over and over again, and it didn't really give me an incentive to level up every gun in the game. But luckily here, you can do that, and there's more attachments here, and there's more things you could do. I love that you can now add ammunition to your guns. That's actually very, very cool. Like, you can get different types of ammunition. You could get full metal jacket, hollow point. It's pretty damn cool, and it seems like we actually are going to get higher weapon levels this year, which means more customization and more progression, which I'm a fan of. And it seems like they're finally fixing the whole content issue, hopefully. We're getting like 16 maps at launch, although just because we're getting 16 doesn't mean that they're good, and that's not something to really be excited about, considering that every old COD game had at least 10, but for some reason these past couple entries we've been famished on maps at launch. So at least this year they seem to be getting that part right, but if the maps aren't good, then what's the point? And luckily, the maps themselves are not terrible this year. They're a mix between Modern Warfare and Cold War, which I'm fine with. There's definitely height points, there's low points, there's Levolution, there's not terrible camping spots, there is some, it's not like they're non-existent, and some maps definitely feel more defensive, but some of the maps are not terrible. Some of them are okay, some of them are mid, but there isn't one map I would honestly say was bad, aside from one snow map. I don't know if I have footage from it, but that snow map where there's, I don't know what it's called. I dislike it though, because it's basically a camper's paradise. My biggest complaint with Vanguard though is that it feels too similar to be its own game. This game does not really have much different besides the setting. There is nothing you can't find in Vanguard that you can find in previous games. It is essentially the exact same as Modern Warfare 2019. And I don't know, I keep saying that, but I mean it. The kill streaks feel like all of them are just copied over from Modern Warfare 2019. The personal radar's back. The UAV. The radar. The really bad minimap, which, I mean, as much as I dislike it, I've kind of gotten used to not using the minimap with the past couple of COD games, but god damn, I don't know why they seem to want to make the minimap worse, and in this game with the attachments, it's almost the least viable in the series ever. It is not viable at all, and the minimap is terrible in this game, and I think it should be changed. I'm used to it at this point, but it is not a good minimap in terms of COD standards. It just isn't. So far for me, SBMM actually hasn't been awful. I know it's going to get far worse once the actual game comes out, but I haven't felt it super bad, but apparently other people have. I've gotten lucky with it, so I'm happy about that, and I really hope that this year we don't have terrible SBMM, because Cold War was basically unplayable because of the SBMM. I fucking hated the matchmaking in Cold War. It basically made me step away from the game, not even after that long after its initial release, despite me wanting to put more time into it. The fact that I would have to play with friends just to get matches that I would actually be able to play and go positive. And I'm not saying that because I'm a bad player. In fact, I was on the better half. What ended up happening, though, is I'd get put in these really sweaty lobbies, and while I would still go positive a lot of the time, it wouldn't be fun for me. I'd have to sweat a lot, and if I wanted to just have a casual experience, I would have to get friends on to play with, and I didn't mind that. I actually had a lot of fun playing Cold War with friends, but sometimes you want to play it alone, and Cold War was a terrible COD game to play alone, at least for me, but maybe that's what they were going for. Vanguard, so far, the SBMM has not been awful, although that could definitely change, and I'm almost certain it will change once the full game releases, because I doubt the SBMM is going to stay this low, knowing Activision, which is a shame. But I'm really hoping it stays like this, the way I've had it, because for me it has not been an issue. As you could probably see, I'm not actually doing terrible in these clips, because I haven't gotten terrible matches yet. I've gotten a couple that have been pretty hard, and I've gotten a lot that have been very easy, so it's been all over the place, which is good. I don't want to have matches all in a row that are really hard, but I also don't want to have matches that are like COD Mobile, where they're basically me playing against some 10-year-old kids from, using their iPads and their Amazon Fire tablets. It's much more enjoyable to play a mix of those matches. Some where I have to do well, others where I don't really have to do so hard. So keep it that way, Activision, please. Performance for the game has been incredibly mediocre for me on PC, It's had a lot of glitches, and visually, I haven't been able to play the game at a super high frame rate. I was going to criticize the fact that I had a really bad stutter, but I ended up updating my drivers, and that ended up fixing most of the issue, but I still have a pretty bad stutter in this game. And I don't understand why it's so hard to run when it legit is, like, just the same as Modern Warfare. And I know that's really stupid. Yeah, it's made by a different studio. It probably is less polished. And Modern Warfare has been out for a longer time. But it doesn't look better than Modern Warfare is my issue. And it shouldn't be running worse. It's running worse than a game that came out 2 years ago that looks better. And to me, that's not a good sign. And I do enjoy that it has the Modern Warfare visual engine because I think the graphics in this game are not terrible, depending on what platform you play on. If you play it on last-gen consoles, the game looks hideous. But it just doesn't look better than Modern Warfare 2019 in many circumstances, and that's not a good thing because that is a game before, and that's in the same engine. And honestly, it doesn't have the same impact that that engine had because with Modern Warfare 2019, there was a lot of polish done to the game. This game lacks that said polish, and say what you want about Modern Warfare being an incredibly mixed bag, because it definitely was. I didn't like it for the longest time. While it's definitely grown on me and I've grown to enjoy the game a decent amount now, when the game was out, I hated Modern Warfare. I like it now, like I said, hated it back then, and I'm pretty sure the same thing's going to happen with this game with the performance and the graphics and all of this other stuff. It just, I don't know. I really don't know why it doesn't run better. And I mean, I know why, but it's a little bit ridiculous that its performance is incredibly mediocre. And I'm pissed about it because this is the beta, and like I mentioned in the beginning, the beta runs better for me than the full launch. Cold War's beta ran a lot better because it didn't crash every 5 minutes. The Cold War at its launch crashed for me every 5 minutes. Modern Warfare 2019 went from being playable at 1080p 60 to not even basically letting me get into a match because it crashed every time whenever the game came out, and it made me infuriated, and that's why I honestly am debating on just not buying this game until a couple months down the road. I didn't even buy Modern Warfare right when it came out. I bought it 2 months after it came out, so it should have been fixed, but oh well. Modes-wise, this game is about as predictable as it gets. We have, now, mode selection-wise, I honestly feel like they're definitely trying new things. There is now different types of matches, which I honestly find a kind of cool concept. Basically, there's a mix between, say, tactical, assault, as well as blitz, which I honestly find to be kind of cool. This adds more variety to your games, and I'm hoping that they end up actually making it so you can actually customize what you can have, but it's honestly kind of cool. You can have tactical matches where it's just a 6v6, the assault, which is like a 8v8 to 10v10, and then blitz, which could be up to 20v20 on these tiny maps, really fast-paced. These are fun. I like that. But the modes themselves, granted this is the beta, not the full game, and so we don't get a ton of modes, but we only have 5 here, and we've all seen them before. The only one that we have not seen is Patrol, but we kind of have. It's a new take on Hardpoint that I honestly don't really like a whole lot. Instead, it's Hardpoint, but the point moves around constantly, which helps and doesn't help. I prefer standard Hardpoint, but I could see many people enjoying this, especially people that are more aggressive, because you can't camp on this mode. You just can't. There's no camping at all, because you're moving constantly if you want to win, which is it's a nice idea, and I think it could be a very fun mode. But Champion Hill is, honestly, I've only played maybe 1 or 2 matches of it. It's fun. I honestly am glad that it replaced Gunfight, though, and that's because this honestly feels like not what Gunfight should have been, but it honestly feels like a nice new Gunfight mode, and it adds some distinction between this and the past 2 games, because Gunfight in Cold War to me was so mediocre for me. And so it's nice to have a completely new mode. Is it very fun? It's okay, I guess. I'm not going to play it a lot, but I definitely think it has some value to it. It has a nice competitive nature to it. I like it, but overall, it's just okay for me. The next thing, though, is the weapons. And, oh boy. So, as you can see, there's a lot of STG and Tommy gun gameplay. And that's mainly because these are the first 2 guns you unlock, and while you can upgrade them pretty damn fast, my big issue is that these are, like, the only viable guns you get when you start. You have a sniper, which to me, sniping in this game is just not the way to go, at least at the moment. The M1 Garand, which is not also very good either. The shotgun, which, I mean, it's better than it was in the alpha in the first half of the beta, because it used to be terrible. It's now usable, but not super usable. And then you get the STG and the Tommy gun, which are basically probably, I don't know yet, because I haven't tried all the other guns, the best in the class. The Tommy gun, the MP40 is better, which is, I think, the second gun you unlock. I can't remember. But in terms of the STG, this is the best AR in the game, because it's the first one you get, and it's essentially, you don't need any attachments to do well with it. And basically, the reason I've been using these two is because you have to wait till, like, level 10 to get your first next gun. You have to go through the levels to unlock other weapons, which is a little annoying. Hopefully that will change in the near future, though, but at least at the moment, that's not how it is. And it sucks, but, well, that's not really how it's gonna roll. But I really hope that they change these, you know. Another weird thing is, for some reason, the preset classes, you get them, but then once you unlock create a class at level 4, 5 of the classes just magically disappear and become your customs. Why? This is, I don't know why this was never an issue, but for some reason it's like this now, and I find it honestly kind of stupid. However, in conclusion, Vanguard feels like a game that's been done before, and to me it feels incredibly mediocre. It's honestly just the same game we've gotten for the past 2 years, and while that's definitely not means it's going to be an awful game, it means it's going to be insanely forgettable, and honestly a game that I'm not super looking forward to. And while I'm not sure if I will purchase it, I might end up in the end, because even though I said Cold War I wouldn't, back then there was really bad COVID and I basically had nothing to do, so I ended up purchasing the game. I don't feel like this Vanguard is going to have that same luck, because Cold War did not leave a good taste in my mouth, because I didn't really like it a whole lot. But also, at least where I live, COVID isn't terrible anymore. I'm going outside again. There just isn't really a reason for me to get this new entry, especially when we're going to be having some incredibly entertaining and incredibly fun FPS games come out around the same time. Battlefield 2042 looks goddamn incredible. And honestly, if it's between that and this, granted, I haven't played the beta for that. For all I know, that's going to be an overhyped disaster, which I do think is possible. If that game lives up to the hype, that game is going to be the game you should get. Ignore Vanguard, at least when it comes out, and wait till the next Battlefield comes out and see which one. And Halo Infinite also looks incredibly fun, and then you also got the other games like Back 4 Blood and the next Forza Horizon. There just isn't a reason to play this game. It's an incredibly mediocre and done-to-death FPS game. And honestly, this game shows me that COD needs to take a break. It just does. And I'm hoping they end up taking a break in the near future, because this is just not the way to go. And hopefully next year, I'm hoping that they change things up, but the way it's looking, it might not. But it also could, because it's going to be a sequel to Modern Warfare, apparently, as far as leaks go. But we'll just have to see, because so far, this ain't it. I definitely had fun with the beta, and I'm not saying I didn't, but I also didn't pay any money, and it's basically just the same as Modern Warfare. But would I pay $60 for this? Probably not. I would honestly just hold off to see what else comes out. But if you really want to play it, it's your choice. But just don't get it on last-gen systems, because on those, it's downright a disaster. Besides that, what do you guys think of the beta? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.